Hi, welcome. This is Halak. Today I'll be presenting the while loop. So here I have my Eclipse open with a class that I created called, the project is called while loop. The class itself is called while counter. And you notice on this side right here, uh, I've opened a Lucid chart to show you the actual flowchart that accompanies the Java code. Okay, so let's get started. Let's get rid of that. Okay, so first thing is I'm going to declare a counter variable, initialize it to 0. Okay, so I'll discuss the reason why in computing we tend to, or computer scientists tend to initialize their variables to 0. And this has to do with arrays, which you'll learn about in later lectures. So I have a counter that's initialized to 0. So if I do, if I want to count to 0, I can say while. So that's the while is a keyword that depicts a loop. And here we have while counter is less than, let's say 9, sorry, let's say 10, since we want to count for 10 times, right? So here, make a little comment. Counts from 0 down to 9. Okay, so yeah, to 9. So it's from 0 to 9, which means it counts 10 times. The reason why we use 0 is that when we index arrays always starts at 0 and it indexes to let's just say the size of the array is n. The index into the array will be from 0 to n minus 1. So for example, if here we have an array of size 10, the index would be from 0 to 9. Okay, and that's the reason why we like to stick with the counters being 0. Okay, there. Okay, so we come down here. We can actually do a print. Okay, we'll print out so we can see the loop. I'll put in, I'm going to not use the format standard, so I'm just going to do this. So I'm just going to print. Okay, so I'm going to print counter. Okay. Right. And then now what I'm going to do is I'm going to update counter. There's there's a number of ways of doing it for this. I can use this notation. Okay, this is called a postfix increment. And this is actually equivalent to this. Okay. So this is equivalent to that. Okay. We also have the plus counter, which basically means increment the counter and then execute the statement. In this case, it's what we're going to do is actually execute the statement and then increment the counter. But in the end, for this, the logic here, it doesn't really matter. Okay. In a later lecture, I'll actually show you the difference between there. But now we can keep it as that. Okay. So you have that, and so we're going to count from 0 to 9 and then just exit. Okay, so I'm going to just put down here. I'm going to just put done counting. All right. So there. Now if I can just run it, you see at the bottom. See, so it's make this a little bigger. So it goes from 0 to 9, and then we're done counting. All right, so that's the while loop. Now, we also covered flowcharts. So I'm just going to put in the corresponding flowcharts for this. All right, so here, make it a little bit smaller. So let's say start. And going down. So the next thing I do is I'm going to initialize the counter. Okay, so make it a little bit cleaner here. So all I'm going to do is initialize the counter. It's just like what we did in the code here. Okay. And then I'm going to put in the decision. You notice that this is very similar to the if statement, right? So a while loop is essentially combining a repetition kind of construct together with a decision construct, right? So let's say if counter is less than 10, fit. No, it didn't fit. It's okay. I'll do that. Just make it a little bigger here. Just, there it is. All right. So that's all we have. And if it is less than 10, which is it'll be true, then what we want to do is the next line is to actually display it, right? So in here, display counter, right? Just following the code, the Java code there. Okay, here it is. A little longer. The next thing we do is that we actually display. Actually, we had to increment counter. Increment counter by 1. Okay, so that's what we have. Okay, and after that, we actually go and loop back up, right? So I'm going to try to do this. This arrow is not the right type. Sometimes it doesn't do what I want it to do. There it is. All right. So so this is if it's true. I can put in. Well, there's really no true here, right? Because here, if counter is less than 10, then we display, we increment, we go back up, and then we go back in. Now, if it's false, right? All right. So if it's false, dang it. Right, so if it's false, we can actually just say, well, we're done. Okay. Well, what we actually did was we printed. So let me do that. I'm going to display, or what we did was we're going to display a statement, right? Done counting, right? That's what we did. And then we end. All right? So this is the corresponding flowchart diagram for this particular while loop. So let's review this. We start the program. We initialize. We actually declare initialize a counter to 0. Now we enter into this loop. So if the counter is less than 10, if that's true, yes, we display it and we increment by 1. So we go back up and we test the condition again. This is the same thing that's happening here. So while the counter is less than 10, we display the counter and then we increment it. Okay, so once it reaches 10, right? So if counter is equal to 10, which means that it's not less than 10, then we exit. Right? So this condition here, we display done counting, and then we end the program. Okay, so that's the while loop, introducing you to the while loop in terms of the actual Java code and the corresponding flowchart. Notice that I didn't use the hexagon shape, which would indicate, for example, I didn't use this to do to show a repetition. Okay, so for a while loop, you don't have to. Okay, thanks for listening. Have a good day. Bye.